Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we bring you a team of footballing underachievers who have happily taken residency on their club's respective benches. Goalkeeper, Richard Wright. Richard Wright makes it to the starting lineup for one of the few times in his career. He's pipped Man United's Sergio Romero, the Argentine international who made just 6 appearances in 2 seasons to stand in between the posts for this hotly contested 11. As a full-time bench warmer and part-time keeper, Wright has somehow managed to compile a rather impressive CV over his 21-year-long career. Playing being a loose term for a long list of clubs, including Ipswich and Arsenal, Wright has been both a playoff saviour and a 2-time Premier League winner. In 2012, Wright joined Mancini's Manchester City on a free transfer, happily taking the position of third-choice goalkeeper. Despite making 0 competitive appearances for City, he managed to keep his contract to the Etihad rolling for 4 years. Although they probably had to change his job title from keeper to Joe Hart's personal assistant. Maybe it's harsh to label him a parasite on the host of the Sky Blues, and perhaps instead we should be praising the Englishman for his shrewd business capabilities. Over the course of his City career, Wright earned a whopping £1.4 million for literally 0 minutes on the field. And it wasn't only rewarding in a financial sense. The ex-Everton player also cashed in on City's 2014 Premier League win, with the only time Wright putting on a Man City shirt being during the celebrations. Defender, Douglas. The first pillar of our back three is Douglas Pereira dos Santos, and his presence on this 11 of underachievers isn't his first personal accolade. The Brazilian fullback has previously been named and shamed as one of Barcelona's worst ever signings, and it's quite clear why. Douglas was bought by Luis Enrique's Barcelona in 2014 for €5.5 million, and he was disappointing from the very beginning. On his debut for the Catalans, he put in a particularly dismal performance during a 0-0 draw with Malaga. After a profusion of criticism from the Spanish press and his own coach, Douglas dropped down the pecking order to third-choice right-back after his very first game, and he has made just 3 appearances since, and not once completing 90 minutes. To be fair, there has been fierce competition at the Camp Nou from both Dani Alves and Martin Montoya, but it looks like he's happy to keep stealing a living from the reserves. And not only has Douglas stolen a career, but he's also stolen silverware. As part of the winning Barca sides for 2 League Cups and the Champions League, Douglas averages out at a trophy every 57 minutes played. Although he's contracted to the Catalans until 2019, the defender has been offloaded to Benfica for the 2017-18 season, where he's yet to make an appearance. Classic. Defender, Winston Bogarde. Winston Bogarde proved he was all pay and no play when he moved to Chelsea in 2000, and reigning as our money-making bench-warming king, he also takes the mantle as captain of this side. The infamous defender began his career in his homeland of the Netherlands, and in 1994 moved to Amsterdam's Ajax. In 3 seasons he earned his personal best in appearances, playing 62 times in total for the Dutch Giants, where he also got his hands on the Champions League trophy in 1995. But when he left for Milan in 1997, his proper career as a serial bench warmer really took off. His stay in Italy was short-lived, and over his only season for the Red and Blacks, Bogarde managed just 3 games. He was slightly more successful during his stint at Barcelona, where he featured in 41 games under compatriot Louis van Gaal. However, it wasn't until Winston moved from Barcelona to Chelsea that he became the footballing father of money grabbing. Over 4 seasons at Stamford Bridge, Bogarde made just 9 appearances, something that would push most footballers out the door, but not Bogarde. He was happy to keep training and collecting his paychecks, and with him reportedly earning 40k a week, it would have been cheaper for Chelsea to actually install central heating into the bench. The unambitious defender rejected loan deals that would have meant a 30% drop in his salary, and he admitted that he was sticking it out with the Blues for the hefty pay packet, saying, "I may be one of the worst buys in Premier League history, but I don't care." Defender, Fabio Coentrão. At the left of the back three is Real Madrid's Fabio Coentrão. The 29-year-old joined Spanish side in 2011 for a substantial €30 million. He made 106 appearances and played in 73 league games, an amount that seems quite a lot compared to the other 10 in this lineup, but over 6 years in Madrid, it's actually quite remarkable that he was still on their books. And even more remarkable is his ample collection of silverware, Although he only played 6 times in all competitions in 2016-17, the Portuguese defender bagged his second Champions League trophy. But what we really have to admire about Coentrão is his honesty and his complete lack of shame. In 2017, he admitted that he wasn't fit enough to represent Real Madrid, proving that while he was resting on the bench, he wasn't even attempting to stay match fit. Coentrão has never managed to play over 20 games in a season, a stat he clearly plans on continuing. The Portuguese player has moved back to his homeland, presumably pushed by the Real board, in a loan move to Sporting, and with only 5 appearances for the side, he's getting pretty comfy on the bench there too. Midfielder, Fabian Delph. In 2015, Delph became public enemy number 1 in Birmingham after he moved from Villa Park to the Etihad. As Aston Villa's captain, he'd promised to stay in the Midlands, but just 6 days later, he signed a contract in Manchester, in a deal that would earn him a handsome $90k a week. I'm sure Delph would argue that this move away was simply an opportunity he couldn't turn down. He was saying goodbye to relegation battles and hello to Champions League football. But that really isn't the case, is it, Fabian? In his first season in Manchester, Delph played just 17 league games, 9 of those as a substitute, and this hasn't changed much. In the following Premier League campaign, he made 7 appearances in total, starting for the Light Blues only twice. And since his arrival, he has played just 253 minutes of Champions League football at the time of writing. Although many people expected Pep to ship the second stringer off in the summer, Delph publicly stated he was keen to stay at City and wants to keep playing under the best manager in the world. And having successfully clung onto his space in the Manchester City dressing room over the transfer window, and it looks like another comfortable season sitting on the bench for the Englishman. Who wants to play 90 minutes when you can just play 20 anyway? Midfielder, Scott Sinclair. In 2012, when Man City had an abundance of cash and a lack of transfer announced, Mancini was hunting for English players and signed Scott Sinclair for £10 million. His position in this starting 11 is slightly more harsh than some of his compatriots, as really his lack of playing time was down to his teammates, rather than his own idleness. And he is one of the only players in our 11 that has voiced his anger over the lack of minutes on the pitch. Sinclair made back-to-back starts during his first month in Manchester. However, in his third game, a clash against Arsenal, the winger was subbed at half-time and never made it into City's starting lineup again. He slammed his manager for not giving him a proper chance to prove himself, as he spent the rest of the season tied to the Light Blues bench, where he made 12 appearances, all as a sub. And this was followed by 2 equally forgettable loan moves to West Brom and Aston Villa, where he still struggled to get into their first team and spent continuous time in their reserve sides. Midfielder, Hernanes. The versatile Hernanes is next to make it onto this list of this wildly lazy 11. While playing at Lazio, he forged his reputation as one of the most accurate passers in the league, and his style of play allowed him to be compared to the likes of Pirlo and Kaká. But, unlike those footballing legends, Hernanes has been happy to underachieve, having only flirted with the idea of success. Most happy as a big fish in a very, very small pond, he has really only been comfortable in lower level football. He flourished at his boyhood club Sao Paulo, where he was a regular starter and was named as one of the most promising young footballers. In true bench-warming form, he never lived up to those flattering comparisons and never made it to the big time. After joining Juventus in 2015, he made just 24 league appearances, and despite his once highly regarded passing abilities, he created just 13 chances and contributed just 1 assist in Juve's league campaign. The natural progression for Hernanes was towards an exit out of Italy, and even more predictable than that was his move to Hebei China Fortune. Just like any good money-grabbing benchwarmer, Hernanes sold out and moved to the Chinese side, where he'll earn a huge 8 to 9 million euros a season. But having managed just 6 appearances and 1 goal in the Super League, the Brazilian hasn't even cut it out there. Hernanes has now gone back to his one true love, Sao Paulo, the only place he managed to play, and play well. There's no place like home, eh, Hernanes? Midfielder, Ravel Morrison. Playing in the middle of our very unconventional midfield 4 is Man United's forgotten man, Ravel Morrison. The youngster, who Sir Alex Ferguson once named the most talented player to come from the Red Devils academy since Paul Scholes, and was in the same youth team as Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba, has failed to live up to his promise. Despite being on United's books for 3 years, he'd never made a single appearance for the senior side, moving to West Ham in 2012, starting his career of bench hopping that still continues. Morrison may not have racked up minutes on the pitch, but he racked up figures in the bank. and splinters from the bench were a small price to pay for the 18-year-old who was on 12 grand a week. In fact, he managed just 9 minutes of football for the Hammers before being carted off on loan to test out Birmingham City's bench. And, like a young Winston Bogarde, Morrison has continued to flesh out a career as a professional bench hopper, having already played for 8 clubs at 24 years of age. Forward, Theo Walcott. Theo Walcott is officially part of the furniture at the Emirates, having been there since 2006, where he signed as a 16-year-old from Southampton. And he earns his place in this Benchwarmers 11, albeit not from his preferred position up front, based on the fact that on average he started just 15 games a season since he joined the Gunners. As all good underachievers do, Walcott had a promising introduction to football, and his fall from record-breaking teen to moaning bench warmer has been as painful as every one of his injuries. The once rapid forward has had 41 injuries since moving to Wenger's Arsenal, spending probably as much time on the physio table as he does on the subs bench. The Englishman is a physical embodiment of Arsene Wenger's own fall from grace, with his career aligning almost perfectly with Arsenal's collapse as title contenders. Not that we can pin Arsenal's self-destruction solely on Theo, but his lack of ambition seems to reflect the club's general attitude. He has remained happy to make up the numbers on the sidelines, with probably the most strenuous activity he does all week being raking up his £140,000 salary. Forward, Shaun Wright-Phillips. Shaun Wright-Phillips could be the poster boy of wasted talent. After such a promising career at Man City as a youngster, he well and truly became stagnant. Back in the days when Man City were less league contenders and more relegation fighters, Wright-Phillips was the shining light in Keegan's side. The youngster, who had joined the Light Blues at just 17, relished in his coach's attacking style of football. He earned a regular spot in the starting 11 and won Young Player of the Season 4 years on the trot. And in 2005, Wright-Phillips returned to his native London with a move to Chelsea. And it is here when the narrative takes a turn for the worst. Wright-Phillips struggled to get into Mourinho's league-winning side, and struggled again under Avram Grant. He started only 65 times for the club in 4 seasons, with a further 60 appearances as a sub, and so we see the start of his benchwarming career. He moved back to Man City, where he was limited to the bench. The Golden Boy had very much lost his glow, as he struggled to compete with City's new signings, and in the 2010-11 season, Wright-Phillips only made 7 league appearances, an all-time career low for the winger. And things got worse. He moved back to London under Harry Redknapp's QPR, where yet again, like a duck to water, Wright-Phillips took to the bench. On a healthy 60k a week, Wright-Phillips played just 60 games for QPR, scoring just 1 goal. His manager expressed frustration at the lack of ambition, explaining that the winger had refused to go out on loan as he wouldn't take a pay cut. But why would you when you had such a comfy seat on the sidelines? Forward, Michy Batshuayi. In 2016, Chelsea signed the Belgian striker for £33 million, but although he was Antonio Conte's first signing, he hasn't had much success getting into the Italian side. He has only been involved in 23 games since moving to London, 21 of those being a substitute at the time of writing. In the 2016-17 campaign, Batshuayi's time spent on the bench equated to almost 3 days. And although West Ham, Newcastle and Monaco had all supposedly registered interest in the former Marseille star, it seems Batshuayi has settled to stay in his comfortable seat on the Blues bench for another year. He says he wants to stay and fight for his place in the side, but Chelsea having signed Alvaro Morata in 2017, it's unlikely that he'll be a regular in the side. But on £70,000 a week to watch the games from the dugout, his decision to stay may be lazy, but it's definitely understandable. But when combining his huge pay packet and his rather monstrous transfer fee, he hasn't exactly been value for money for Abramovich. So thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it, why not watch this lovely video right here? And as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.